At what point does food become more than just sustenance? Joining us now to talk about the growth and implications of non-traditional foods, such as the food product Soylent and other supplements. Let's welcome in the nation's capital, Irina Knežević. She is the food systems researcher at Carleton University. Here in our studio, Greg Anthony, co-founder of the Toronto-based tech startup Ringo and a Soylent user. Amy Rosen, the food writer, is here. And we welcome back the University of Guelph's Evan Fraser in Vancouver, British Columbia. Welcome everybody to the program. Nice to have you joining us today. Evan, do want to start with you once again though and take us on a bit of a tour of history here. Early humans obviously were not picky eaters. They ate whatever they could get their hands on. When did we go from being scroungers for anything to picky eaters and we like this and we don't like that?
Well, in my opinion, guys, there's three things that make us us, and that's obviously our brains with their ability to communicate, the fact we've got these opposable digits, these thumbs that allow us to manipulate our environment almost unlike any other creature, but also our teeth. And our teeth, if you think of a herbivore, it's got these sharp incisors for cutting grass off and the big molars for grinding grass. Carnivores, on the other hand, have canines and premolars for tearing. We've got a bit of everything, so we can make use of almost any kind of diet. But in order to do that, we need to do something else. We need to cook the food in order to sort of pre-digest it and deal with foodborne ailments because our guts aren't all that strong. So we've evolved both evolutionarily but also culturally to be omnivorous. But in doing so, we then have been able to create special types of food that are designed for what we really like. Fats, proteins, and salts, sugars are really the things that we're historically limiting in our diets. So we've really got strong taste for those things. And so we have then, in the modern day, when sort of all bets are off and all limitations are off, we've been able to really focus our diets on these four ingredients that are so tasty to us, and that ultimately is to our detriment.
Well, there are lots of people nowadays who are thinking, what if? What if we could avoid all of the problems that we were talking about, Evan, in the last segment? What if we could, instead of having meals be a half-hour or hour-long phenomenon, the preparation would just be 2 or 3 minutes? And to that end, we want to play some tape from a guy named Rob Reinhart who wants to talk to us about Soylent. Roll tape.
I think humanity is going to continue to grow. Everybody eats and everyone needs energy, and these constraints are only going to get tighter, and we're going to have to take our understanding of the body and nutrition and design something new, make something man-made for man, for humanity. This is just not going to scale to the extent to feed 7 billion, 10 billion people. It's not going to scale that far. You know, we started with what nature provided us because it was good enough, and then once we understood what we really wanted from it, we produced, you know, more advanced versions. Like people used to ride horses for transportation, and then we designed cars.
We're going to hear more about this throughout the rest of the program tonight, but Irina, let's start with you. What do you think of this idea?
Well, I think it's another food novelty, which we have plenty of. It assumes that food is something that we take in just for fuel, and as human beings, we actually socialize quite a bit, and we build quite a bit of who we are as individuals. So a lot of our identity around our food and food practices, food choices, we relate to one another through food. We participate in our social rituals through food. So I think that this might be a meal replacement occasionally for people who are interested in those kinds of convenient meal replacements, but I don't really see it as a major threat to what we eat.
Amy, how about you?
I agree. I did a juice diet once for a story, and the thing I missed was chewing. The other thing I missed, and it was flavorful, but I missed being around people. You're isolated if you're just drinking by yourself and not going out and enjoying other people.
So it wasn't that the drink didn't taste good, it wasn't that it didn't provide you with the calories and nutrients and so on.
I was full, I was satiated, it tasted good, and I was lonely.
You were lonely.
I was lonely, that was it.
Evan, what's your thought on this?
Well, I was walking down Kitsilano neighborhood in Vancouver yesterday, and there was a local butcher that had a sign out that said, "No one ever invited their friends over for a microwave." And to me, this sort of sums up exactly what the other two had just said. We're social beasts that do a lot of socializing around food, and that's it's so much more than just sustenance.
Greg, we are going to sample your product soon, but you're hearing some of the concerns about moving away from even all of the problems associated with the diets that we engage in right now for something a lot simpler. What do you say about all this?
I think it's important. First let me start off by saying that I think there are a lot of mindless meals out there. So certainly Sunday brunch with your friends, Friday night dinner with your family, that's not really the use case for Soylent. I think when we look at what it replaces, this new technology really requires a rethinking of how we look at food. Certainly not every meal you're having not every meal you're going to have is with friends, family. Not every meal is an experience. Sometimes you just need food because you're a human and you need to eat food. So why shouldn't you be able to do that in the fastest, cheapest, healthiest way possible?
And this is it.
And that's it.
So you wouldn't want to have this every day as your plan?
So I've been drinking Soylent for over a year, and for me, Soylent is an elegant solution to the problem of lunch at work.
When you say you've been drinking it for a year, you mean exclusively?
No.
You do have other food?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the most common misconceptions about Soylent. The idea that, well, if you drink it, then you're not going to drink anything else, or you're not going to eat any food. People ask me, oh, don't you love steak? Absolutely. I had steak and eggs for breakfast. But
How decadent.
I had Soylent for lunch.
What's in it?
So what we're drinking right now is version 1.0. So like a true Silicon Valley startup, they have iterated. They're on version 1.4 now. But basically, and you heard Mr. Reinhardt describe in the video, what they've done is sort of take everything that is needed, all of the dietary requirements for a full day's worth of nutrients, and synthesize those into this package. And
it's a powder and you mix it up and here we go.
It's a powder, you mix it up.
With water?
With water.
With water. Evan and Irina, I'm really sorry you're not here in the studio. Tough luck.
So am I.
Friends, shall we?
Cheers.
To your health. Here we go.
All right.
Let's see how this is.
Doesn't smell very good.
So it's designed.
Come on.
So it's designed to have a neutral
Heck.
flavor
It's
profile.
chalky. It's powdery.
I think it's fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, what don't you like about it?
The texture on my tongue, the flavor, the color, the smell. My senses are.
Get off the fence. Tell me what you really think.
It's delicious.
So I think it's
it tastes
designed
fine.
intentionally
Isn't that a
to be a neutral flavor profile. If they designed it to have a Hawaiian punch flavor or something that's very offensive to your taste buds, you'd find people get sick of it very, very quickly. It's designed to taste almost like nothing so that people can experiment themselves, add different ingredients and so forth.
What do we spend on average for lunch every day?
So I think if you were to ask the average person, people fall into basically two camps, at least in my experience. They're the folks who go to restaurants, grab some fast food, McDonald's, pizza, Subway, etc., spending
So,
about
10
8
bucks?
to 10 bucks,
Yeah.
versus, and that's time. It's also money, but there are also the folks who, make their lunch the night before and bring it to work as well. They're saving a little bit of money, but in that case, they're spending a lot of time. In this instance, we're spending about a minute to make. And it's roughly the cost of a TTC token, so $3.
$3 and a lot less time.
Yeah.
But, well, your problem of loneliness, you could always eat this with somebody, right? You could drink this with somebody, and that
No,
gets around
everyone
you.
else would have to be having it too. 'Cause
They would.
It,
But
you
this
don't find it chalky? It's super chalky.
I don't mind the chalky. I don't mind.
You love chalky.
Evan, how does it taste to you? Oh wait, sorry, you're not here.
But I have a question. I mean, we've had meal replacements which have been billed in almost exactly the same way as this since the 1950s. I mean, Jack LaLanne's, the earliest of Californian fitness gurus, had a meal replacement that was sort of the same kind of thing 50 years ago. So how is Soylent any different than stuff we've already got on the market and have had for 2 generations?
Yeah, it's a great question, to be honest, Evan. And I think there are a couple key distinctions. So the first would be that Soylent, it's almost a misnomer to call it a meal replacement. Soylent truly is a food. it has gone through all of the strict FDA regulatory approvals, et cetera, that would constitute it as such. The second thing I would say, at least in my experience with meal replacements, has been that for someone like me, they always leave me hungry. That is not the case with Soylent.
No, this is filling.
This is extremely filling. You drink a glass of this, and you will be full.
Irina, given all of the things we were talking about earlier, the difficulty of getting food, to market, to supermarket, without all of the environmental degradation that does go along with that process, do you think this is an option here?
I'm really still skeptical. I haven't tried it obviously yet, but I would be willing to try it. But the idea that this is a cheap sort of replacement really I find it disconcerting because to the best of my knowledge, the first ingredient in this mix is maltodextrin, which is a starch. So if you're going to have a cheap starchy meal, why not just have a bowl of oatmeal, which would actually be a significantly cheaper meal. So that's one thing that I'm concerned with. Secondly, I don't really think that it addresses any of the concerns that we have around the food system. It doesn't really address the issues of inequities. It doesn't address any of the issues of environmental degradation associated with agriculture, because clearly Soylent is not really, or it doesn't seem to be, from what I have been able to see about this product, doesn't seem terribly concerned with sourcing of ingredients from ethically or environmentally sound places. So I really don't think that it addresses anything other than this idea of convenience. And to add to this idea of mindless meals, I do agree that we often have a lot of mindless meals, but those mindless meals are exactly what stands behind a lot of our health problems. So at a society-wide level, that we consume processed foods without really understanding what it is that we're consuming and how they affect our bodies. So I don't really see that Soylent is an answer to that.
Okay, Greg, you're on. You got a bunch of skeptical people here, so go for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm here to impart. The first thing I'd say, would really be, there's a lot to say. I think I would start by saying, the fact that this doesn't or wouldn't be able to address food inequalities around the world, I find very difficult to believe. Let's not forget, this is a startup, a few years old. When we are at scale with something that currently only costs $3 for a full meal with all of the nutrients. So to be clear, if you ate only oatmeal all day, every day, you would not be able to survive. I'm sorry. You would be very sick. That is not the case with Soylent. It does have all of the nutrients that you need.
So this is filled with vitamins.
Yeah.
What's in here?
But it's mostly grains, right? It's like oat and rice and...
No, it is fully formed. It has lipids. It has the amount of lipids, carbohydrates, and protein.
I got the list here. Hang on. Is it vitamin C, zinc, potassium, calcium, copper, iodine, and something I can't pronounce? Maltodextrin?
Correct. And that's just like the thickener.
That's the thickener. Okay. Is there anything in here that's bad for us?
The great thing about Soylent is that they have, again, much like a true tech startup, they've made their ingredient list completely open source. So actually in the newest version, there was sort of a win that originally it was just listed as artificial flavors, which they have now been able to remove. So you can actually see every single thing.
There's no artificial flavoring in here?
This is 1.0. We got some artificial flavors.
There is in this one.
I'm sorry.
But
how old is it?
In the new one.
In the newer incarnations, there is.
In the newer incarnation, exactly.
This is not available in Canada yet, right?
Not yet.
A few months away still.
Word on Twitter is that they're looking for a 2015 release. So, Mr. Reinhardt, if you're listening, that would be great.
I wanted to just point out to everybody that I snapped a picture of this a second ago, speaking of Twitter, because I did want to tweet out the fact that, we don't usually drink on this program, but here, this is a bit of an exception. But I do want to get back.
We're sharing a meal, we're not drinking, right?
Well, we're doing both, and that's the
right.
beauty of it.
What are we doing here?
Of it.
I think would you say we're eating? Or are we drinking?
I'd say we're drinking and sharing a meal.
So this is a meal.
It's new.
It's a meal.
Could this be, you've had this, once a day for the last year?
Yeah, again, it's however much you want it to, but approximately once a day, yeah.
Could you see having it be a larger chunk of your diet?
I think, I can't speak for Soylent necessarily, because again, like, I think some of the misconceptions are, someone who drinks Soylent probably doesn't really enjoy food very much, and that could not be more untrue, at least in my case. So, would I want to use Soylent more? Potentially, but I certainly wouldn't want to replace food entirely. That, I think, there's more interesting stuff happening in that field. When we talk about companies like Beyond Beef, they're developing these artificial meats that literally look, feel, and taste like meat, but they're made by us.
Okay. Evan, I do want to get back to you on some of the issues we talked about in the first segment, and you pointed out that distribution is a huge problem around the world right now. If the kinds of foods that traditionally make up one's diet are difficult to get into poorer places in the world, more remote places in the world, is this, I'm holding a glass of this stuff right now, is that a potential problem solver right there?
So my gut feeling is probably not, although I'm actually fairly sympathetic to everything that Greg has said, and I think there is probably a role and a growing role in the global food system for these alternative, perhaps sci-fi-like products. I think when we're talking about international development work, however, these products aren't really all that useful, because the challenge in international development is growing incomes, boosting productivity, creating markets, preserving the food that's there. It's not bringing food in that's been produced and manufactured where all the value's been added, say in North America, and shipping it over and dropping it off in rural Rwanda or something like that. And then even furthermore, the product of Soylent is dehydrated. It needs to be reconstituted with water. And in some of the most poorest, most vulnerable places, clean water is a major challenge. And even thinking about using Soylent as a disaster relief product is challenging, because one of the first things that goes down in a natural disaster and civil conflict is access to potable water. So you have to be able to bring a product in that's got the water already in it. So a product like Campbell's Nourish, which is a full meal in a can, actually brings its own water with it. And there they've had a bit more success in using a sort of a Western high-tech food additive meal replacement for international disaster relief, because at least with the Campbell's product, it's got clean water already in it, and it comes in a container you can actually cook in, a can. Whereas what's a person in a refugee camp without water going to do with a bag of powdered Soylent?
No, to be sure, that's problematic. You do need the water to add. Having said that, let's hear from Rob Reinhardt again. He's the founder of the Soylent company in the States. Where's he from in the States? Down?
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. I have a question about that for you in a second, Amy, but okay. Let's play this clip and then we'll come back with some more talk. Roll tape, please.
I see, the future of it, maybe in 20 years as something very much like water. Like it'll maybe even be this civil resource that we purify and distribute. And, people still pay their water bills, but, no one is really lacking clean water, because we put a lot of work into making it sure that everyone can access it. And I would like this to kind of go the same way, is that no one would have to worry about getting their food.
Okay, a bunch of questions out of that. Amy, this clearly would have some resonance for people of a certain age, much less than mine, for people who are in a certain geographic part of the world, Silicon Valley. If you're kind of young, hip, cool, living a fast life,
and
what do you think?
that's what we discussed before. I understand why he would love this, because a guy on the go, working hard, playing hard, just not interested in cooking that much, but loves food, loves to go out and enjoy food, but a meal replacement, just get it down and get out the door. But I think we're going to have a generation of people, if this goes this way, that don't know how to cook. They don't know how to boil water. They won't eat with their families. Like, all will be lost. Like, where's the humanity in it,
Oh, the humanity.
Oh, the humanity. Where's the joy? Where's the texture? Where are the senses? The taste memories? Like, you'll have nothing if this is all we drink.
Well, Irina, on the other hand, we know that many of us are eating very poorly in terms of whether a lot of what we put into our bodies is not healthy at all. This apparently is healthy. So if they market it as be healthy, save time, it's cheaper, what do you think?
Well, just because they market it as healthy, I don't think we can say with certainty that this is a healthy meal in the long run. So, I mean, is there a clinical study that can show me that this actually indeed is something that would be healthy for us? We know that the way our body absorbs nutrients doesn't come from this like tabled breakdown of nutrients that we need to ingest. Our body requires certain things to even absorb those nutrients that we ingest. So I think how we eat healthily is a much more complicated issue. We also know that even World Health Organization will agree on this, that what determines our health are typically not the resources that we have at hand or the knowledge we have of health, but it's the social environments and food environments around us that really create conditions for healthy living. So I really can't see this as an answer, and I think it's a bit misleading to actually look at this as an answer to world hunger, because in addition to echoing everything that Evan and Amy have already said, I want to add that in development work, everyone can tell you that the best way to curb the population growth is to educate women. So when we talk about feeding billions of people 10 or 20 or 50 years down the road and trying to find technological fixes, we are actually ignoring one of the most important and most effective ways of addressing population issues. And that's not even getting at distribution issues. So I think to say that this is really about sort of feeding the world and solving some problem at a global scale is quite misleading. This is a business opportunity, and this may be a good product, but let's not pretend that this is about saving the world.
You think that's a fair shot?
I think that Irene is right. This isn't about saving the world. I think that that's certainly like a lofty vision. I think fundamentally right now, it is a company.
How about this notion of health, that all of the ingredients that are in here may be healthy for you, but that if we were to transform our diets and focus on this, we'd lose our teeth because we don't need to chew anymore. There are a lot of obviously healthy aspects of food that we would lose. Is that a point?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you certainly, it hasn't been around long enough for any long-term clinical studies, but I can tell you that, personally, I'm someone who, I like the data. That's what I do every day for my job. So, I before starting this, had full spectrum blood tests taken, and very recently have had a follow-up.
What'd you find?
Only improvements.
Really?
And that is in keeping with the vast majority of people online. I mean, there are communities for this online, on Reddit, et cetera, and that is overwhelmingly the experience of most people. So,
have you done any clinical testing on the effect of this product over a long period of time on a control group of people?
I haven't, no, but on myself, I can say, certainly noticed improved health benefits sort of almost immediately after starting to use it.
Meaning what? You feel better?
Felt better, had more energy, wasn't really experiencing that 3 p.m. slump, felt like I slept better. Listen, I think Amy's point is a good one. Anytime we're faced with this kind of technological shift, this leap forward, and that's truly what I think it is, in terms of how technology interacts with our lives, there are always going to be people asking, what are we losing? And it's a good discussion to have. It's a necessary discussion to have. But to the point where we're saying, well, if people start eating and consuming food in different ways, we're going to lose all of these things, are the same sorts of arguments you heard for, when we first came out with email. Oh, we're losing the art of letter writing.
But we have.
We have. I mean, that's true, though.
But I suppose you would look at it and say, but what did we gain?
Yeah.
And I'm very confident sitting here today that 10 years from now, when this isn't just a food fad, that I think history will err on the side of progress.
Let me ask that to Irina. You have pointed out some of the things that concern you about this product that we will lose, but take us 10 years down the road. Do you think there's anything we will gain if we incorporate more of this into our diets?
I really can't see how we would gain from this. I mean, as a time-saving device, it might be helpful to some people, but this idea that we don't have time to look after our meals is actually, I think, one of the problems that we have, not just in the realm of food, but as a society more broadly, is that we have created these lives in which we don't have time to take care of ourselves. We don't have time to sleep enough or take the time to care for our food and spend time with our families. So It could be a time-saving device, but it's definitely not one that would appeal to me to any extent.
Evan Fraser, how about you? Any redeeming qualities of this kind of thing?
Well, I think yes, and maybe moving away from this case of Soylent to more general, these sort of products. I think that when you look at how we currently produce burgers or chicken nuggets or stuff like that, the impact on the environment is huge. The cost in terms of antibiotics and animal welfare is huge, and the impact on our health is huge. And so I think if I was to read the tea leaves, I would say that those sort of products, the conventional, say, burgers and nuggets that we eat now, are going to decline over the next 30 years as a percentage of our diet. What they're going to be replaced with are products, I imagine, that are like Soylent or perhaps algae-based proteins or fungus-based proteins, or even perhaps bug-based proteins, insect-based proteins. And all of these topics, all of these sort of new sectors in the food economy are gaining traction and have been gaining traction rapidly over the last 2 to 3 years. Because I think, you know, startup tech companies all the way through to places like Loblaws, and I was speaking about this to Loblaws 2-3 weeks ago, are realizing that the conventional protein systems are starting to break down. And then the question becomes, what are they going to be replaced by? And I think they'll be replaced by something like Soylent. And I think that may have strong environmental impacts over time, not because we're all going to be eating all of this all the time, but, you know, from 0 maybe to 5% of our diets will come out of these things, and we'll be eating 5 or 10% less burgers and chicken nuggets.
I do want to pick up on the socialization aspect of this, and I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we had Susan Pinker here on the program, and she had a whole range of issues which she did research on, which indicate how to be as healthy a person as you can possibly be. And one of the most significant determinants as to whether or not kids turn out well is whether they eat dinner with their parent and or parents as many times a week as possible. And picking up on that as well, Sheldon, let's also put up here, bottom of page 6, let's put this graphic up. This is from the Huffington Post from a few years ago. According to a number of reports issued by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, children who eat at least 5 times a week with their family are at lower risk of developing poor eating habits, weight problems, or alcohol and substance dependencies, and tend to perform better academically than their peers who frequently eat alone or away from home. Eating together as a family is not just about food and nutrition, it is about civilizing children, about teaching them how to become members of their society and culture, says Robin Fox, a professor who teaches anthropology at Rutgers University in New Jersey. So there's that. There's the Susan Pinker studies, which all point to the importance of the family meal together. Amy, let me get you to sort of weigh in on that as well. Are you concerned that if we do too much of this, we have a deleterious effect on that?
I think there's a place for this as well, but not every night. And I agree that sitting down around the table, let's say I have nieces and nephews who are tweens and teens, I think if my brothers weren't checking in on them, you don't know how they're feeling or what's going on. Their demeanor, if the kids aren't in front of you, you can't really know who their friends are, they're happy or they're sad. And that happens casually around a shared meal. If you try knocking on their bedroom door or texting them or calling them, I don't think you'll get the answers that your intuition or just face-to-face will give you, as they're kind of relaxed, enjoying the chicken you've made them or the tofu burger even, and just kind of connecting and letting you know how their day is.
Greg, we're not asking you to be responsible for all of the world's ills.
No, I think
bring it on. Let's do it.
However,
I'll take it on.
However, we have. I mean, you've read stories as well, I suspect, out of France or out of Italy, where there are concerns about the family unit there. Ever since McDonald's moved in, the kids aren't reliant on their parents anymore to make their meals for them. They can go down to McDonald's, get fast food, and there's been all sorts of connections made to the breakdown of family or kids not doing as well. Is there any concern about what the place of this might be in our go-go North American society that could actually eat away at the desire for families to spend time together and eat together?
I think the first thing I'd say is, when we talk about, the factors that influence health in children, certainly I would be very surprised, I didn't see the full list, but certainly I'd be very surprised if one of those wasn't a healthy breakfast.
For sure.
Right? When I was in school, we had breakfast programs for children who either couldn't afford breakfast or for whatever reason just couldn't get it that day, because it's been proven to, induce health and performance in kids. So I would say I would, one, look to this and say, okay, great. Like, how much easier is breakfast now?
So that replaces breakfast, potentially, in your view?
Absolutely. I mean, it easily could. But in terms of, does Soylent replace the family dinner? I don't think it does. And I don't think that's what it's intended to do. Soylent, to paraphrase, a line, like, Soylent isn't coming for your family dinner. It's coming for your McDonald's meals that you're eating by yourself at your desk. So
McDonald's should definitely not like you guys.
If I were...
You're coming for Mickey D's.
I would be a little bit worried if I were McDonald's, yeah. Sorry, Chris. My last boss used to work for McDonald's, so she's probably going to see this and
she will not be happy.
Not be too happy with me.
Irina, any concerns on your end that this, not this product in particular, but this trend to faster, cheaper, easier, with all the nutrients involved, somehow becomes a replacement for the sociability of a family meal every night?
It could, but here I do agree with Greg. I think that we have enough products that are already doing that to us. And I'm also a little cautious about this movement to resurrect the family meal, because I think despite our best intentions, a lot of that pressure that has resulted from that push has landed on squarely on the shoulders of women, of mothers who are expected to be in the workforce and still prepare these delicious home-cooked meals that are wholesome and well-balanced. So I think this emphasis on reviving the family meal is in itself a little problematic. There are bigger social reasons why we've moved away from those family meals, and Soylent may be one of those products that could contribute to that trend, but it's neither a new trend nor is it something that could be significantly made worse by Soylent. So I'm kind of actually glad to hear that line that Soylent isn't coming for your family meal, it's coming from McDonald's, because I think it's a really brilliant way to market it.
Okay, we've got about a minute left here, and that's time to do one more thing. Those of us of a certain generation who remember the word Soylent think of Charlton Heston. Roll tape, please.
They're making our food out of people. Next thing, they'll be breeding us like cattle for food. You gotta tell them. You gotta tell them.
Promise, Tiger. I promise. I'll tell the exchange.
You tell everybody. Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell them. Silent breed is people!
Greg, can you confirm there's no people in this?
I confirm it. I don't, to my knowledge, there are no people in this.
To your knowledge. That's not a denial. He just said to his knowledge. Can I thank
not on the ingredient list.
Evan Fraser from the University of Guelph. We thank you for being out there on the left coast for us in Vancouver, British Columbia. Irina Knezevich from Carleton University in Ottawa. Amy Rosen, the food writer here in our studio. And Greg Anthony, co-founder of Ringo, a tech startup based here in Toronto. And you are a Soylent user.
I am indeed.
To your health.
Cheers.
Yeah, good luck.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.